Hello. Let me just say that I tend to ramble and change the subject frequently. So just bear with me. I would love to go to the pub or church to have some sort of sensible discussion. But the churches are all closed and the pubs are too expensive. And the pubs are full of headbangers anyway and loud music. And that's why I'm here. I've stopped asking people to like and subscribe because that usually brings unwanted comments from trolls who constantly deny, deter, discredit, disrupt, delay, degrade, and deceive, and hide behind their anonymity of an obscure avatar. A little bit like the pub piss taker who ridicules those who aren't there. And I'm sure we've all been in that situation when walking into a room, the silence is obvious. And when you walk in, you know the subject of the discussion was you. Just grin and bear it, because there's only one thing worse in life than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. Now, I'm using this backdrop because it means peace and tranquility to me in this world of lies, deceit, and chaos, all of which is brought about deliberately by those who want to control us. Make no mistake about that. And the powers that be are using an ancient rule of war, and it works very well. It's called divide and conquer. It's an age-old tactic for winning battles and subduing populations. And we are manipulated into being divided over issues that wouldn't even be a problem if such manipulation didn't exist in the first place. While it is normal and healthy to have differences of opinion and debates over many subjects, what is taboo is to undermine that right by becoming a totalitarian society. And the ploy is simple: to keep us, the general public, arguing with one another over as many issues as they can invent. And there are many, I can assure you. Excuse me. Individuals like myself would love to live in another country, but the recent influx of mass immigration from poorer countries into Europe has made life difficult deliberately to cause massive upheaval for both natives and the immigrants themselves. It just makes for a very unsettled situation of resentment that will eventually explode. And we are all being played by the system that is in place. They use clinical psychologists to manipulate us in as many ways as they can invent and implement new laws to enforce them. The younger generation in the last few generations, probably since the war actually, has been raised to disrespect their elders. Sadly, that's exactly how you destroy wisdom and stop people progressing. Every old person was once a young person who made mistakes, and they learn from those mistakes and then pass that knowledge on. But we are now led to dismiss older folk as irrelevant and old-fashioned, dusty, musty, and obsolete. That puts us on a hamster wheel of no generational progress. People like me are not wanted simply because we have seen it all. We have been conned out of our pensions and spurious mortgage deals, watched evil politicians get their accolades and places in the House of Lords. It should be renamed the House of Devils, but it's not. It's just a place for overgrown tyrants and charlatans living their last days out in the devil's waiting room. But they don't quite know that yet. The false war between men and women is hugely divisive and is deceptively based on false beliefs. Men and women do not need to be in competition with one another because we are clearly built to work together and complement one another. One always being better at some things than the other. Of course, there are exceptions, but the general consensus of opinion is equality, and anyone can compete, and absolutely no one should be discriminated against other than their ability. But the push for equal rights for women has led a lot of women becoming unhappy and just wage slaves, instead of raising happy, healthy children. And without that, then there can be no happy, healthy future. The modern world we've come to accept seems to revel in its own self-inflicted destruction. Collectivism will always be wrong for mankind because we are all unique individuals. We all have something to offer, and no one, absolutely no one, should be excluded. That's why it's totally wrong to believe that the state, the central banks, giant corporations, and non-government organisations are the solution to our problems, when in reality it is those institutions that create the problems in the first place. The only desire we should have is to reveal the shackles that enslave us and therefore show a better way to view the world, one that allows freedom and opportunity for us all without exception. The divisions between us are not greater than what unites us all against a common and very real enemy that bleeds us dry and nudges our thoughts and therefore our behaviours right from when we left school. But don't be mistaken, the enemy is not the politicians. They are purely there to give you the illusion of choice and are also manipulated by the very institutions that enslave us all, the money system. It controls all banks, corporations, NGOs and governments. Every institution, including the courts, the police, as well as all the mainstream media, broadcasters, and all under their control. And it's time to wake up and smell the coffee, or whatever nasty smells lurks under our noses. It's time to start focusing on what we all have in common. A big struggle to make sense of the world, find out who we really are and our place in it, and how we can make it a better place for others, no matter what creed, cult, sex or age. Just remember this, we are all family together. Just a few days ago, I encountered this, and people have such short memories. My ever so nosy neighbour wished me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I just smiled my wickedest smile and reminded her that 2 years ago she told me that because I didn't have the medical intervention I should be shipped off to a quarantine facility. And I can only guess that she meant one similar to those in Poland in the 1940s. I can forgive her, but I most certainly won't ever forget that. Ever. And just remember this. The more we learn, the less we fear. Now, I consider myself to be a free thinker. And I try my best to encourage others to maybe break free of the shackles of modernism and a fear-based existence within a society that is nothing short of being slaves through constant, blatant propaganda pushed by the current mainstream media backed up by the government.